had this thing in me about changing the world. And what I really saw was a world where it was actually pretty unfair and imbalanced. Finance is based on two things: asymmetry of information and collateral. Talent is evenly distributed across the planet,
Yep.
but opportunities were not. What it means is that there's so much more back home that will
Absolutely.
never
Yeah.
have this chance.
Many people know you today, like myself. I know you through Ubuntu Tribe or through blockchain and digital assets. But long before that, you were deep inside traditional finance, major institutions, large transactions, the big boys game, right, as we call it. Can you take us back for a moment? What did that world teach you about how money actually works?
Yes, it taught me a lot. It taught me, the understanding systems, right? First of all, as a student, and even before, I've always wanted to kind of had this thing in me about changing the world, about making a difference, and I realized that money played a critical role in the global system, and shaped nations, shaped leaders, and I wanted to understand why, what's really behind this. And I was lucky and privileged, to masters in finance and so on. And what I really saw was a world where it was actually pretty unfair and imbalanced, right? In the sense that the same rules do not apply to all. And that for me was a major aha moment, right? And then I also I went deep into understanding the fundamentals of how the system is structured. So finance is based on two things: asymmetry of information and collateral. Asymmetry of information tells you that I know something that you don't know that makes me invest in something in particular. Or in the other hand, I'm going to price a higher risk because I don't really know where this is going, right? I have little certainty that the funds will be repaid or that it will have the return, and therefore I ask for higher return or I price a higher interest, right? That's one thing. The second thing is collateral, right? We live in a world, and it started, a few centuries ago, where if I'm going to be lending you money, I'm asking you, and banks would say, okay, what guarantees do you give me, right? Assuming you don't repay, do you have a car, a house, an asset that I can kind of leverage in case things go wrong? So it poses two problems. It means that we live in a world where those with assets get a natural unfair advantage, because since you start with an asset, then you get either the investment that allows you to build more assets, right? So, that for me was a problem. The second issue with asymmetry of information, it means that if I have, right, a better knowledge of an environment, right, or let's say if I'm using a Bloomberg terminal, right, or Reuters terminal, I'll be making much more efficient investment as you do, right? Even if internet managed to kind of alleviate that issue, it creates huge imbalance and inequalities and unfairness. Now, where for me, as I realized another important thing, I was with the World Bank Group, and I was with some of the top institutions. And then I realized that there was a bit of a discrepancy north and south, right? I was born in Africa, and my parents were immigrants in Europe, and I had the chance to really compare both worlds. And I realized one thing is that when the money flows from north to south, then in many ways, right? First, okay, so you're in Europe, you're in America, you can print as much as you want, first of all. If our countries started printing, first thing that hit is inflation, 100% or 200%, and we all just have to kind of give up, right? And that for me was the first injustice. The second injustice, looking at the whole system, was okay, now let's say you want to fund an infrastructure project, let's say a power plant or a huge telecommunication network, right? So it meant literally that, okay, and often it comes with conditions because, you want to make sure that the project succeed, and then you're going to say, okay, I want the best in the world to build this, okay? And I want to make sure that the team who's going to build it also so that, of course, you want to, hard to blame, you want to mitigate your risk. But what it means is that nothing stays. You have to buy your equipment from outside. You have to bring the expertise from outside. Therefore, when you look at the cash flow, what stays is the service.
Right.
And you're here sitting paying the interest. So most of the return of the service, you have to send it back, right? So for me, I felt it was kind of a very unfair in that sense, since, we come from, if you have the money to print, then you have the asset. But if you can't print on the other side, then you don't have the asset. So, and it's this two-tier, and it applies also at societal level, right? When you have the means, you create more wealth. When you don't have, first they don't let you in the door, forget it.
Yeah.
And therefore, and for me the biggest injustice was talent is evenly distributed across the planet.
Yep.
But opportunities were not. And that injustice, or that for me, was the root cause of wanting to build a system that creates equal access to opportunities, regardless of place of birth or wealth at birth. And it's pretty simple to see. Like me, many who have studied who grew up or studied in Europe, coming from immigrants' parents, I mean, you could see that in the Silicon Valley. I'm sorry. It's like 90%. None were born in America, right? And what it means is that there's so much more back home.
Absolutely,
that will never have this chance, right? And in my case, that's really what triggered my journey.